Hi everyone, this is Steph, and tonight we are going to be putting together a fun Valentine sampler. So I'm just going to give it a second to make sure everything's loading properly. For those of you that ordered the to-go kit, you're just going to need some adhesive and some scissors. There is no stamping involved in this project, so super easy to put together. And if you haven't seen the completed one, it is, try to get the, oh, you can see glares from everything. Let me put it back down and see if that picks it up better. Alright, so this is the sampler right here, and it is the Love You Always, which is a brand new product suite in our Stampin' Up! Catalog. Those of you that are my direct customers, you should have received this catalog in the mail by now. If you haven't, be sure to let me know. Remember when I'm live, because I'm using an application called Switcher, I can't see directly who's live, but if you leave comments, then I know you're there. So this is the suite right here, Love You Always, and it's on pages 10, 11, and then 12 and 13 just kind of shows the stamp sets a little close up. So even though there's these really pretty stamp sets, I used the designer series paper here, which says Love You Always specialty paper. It's a foil paper that I believe is Blushing Bride, Rococo Rose, and a Sahara Sand. And then we have a black and white print, which I have to say I was excited when I was contacting you guys directly to see which background papers you would choose, because obviously in the designer series paper, even though it's a 12-pack, you get 2 of each design, so I can't give everybody the same one. So it was kind of nice to see with the choices which one you guys chose. And then accents with this foil paper. Now, when you look at mine, I'm going to put this together with you. The only exception that I am going to make is for this one, I used some foil paper here and here that is no longer a current product. So I adjusted the sampler when I packaged it for you guys to only reflect brand new products. I didn't want to give you guys things that were retired in doing this, even though it's just foil. And some of you I kind of worked out some details with directly if you wanted to change some things up. So without any further ado, I am going to start. Now, the background paper I chose is actually the striped one here. And on the reverse side, it's this floral print. So you could do either side. This was really a fun project to put together because I didn't have to do any stamping for you guys at all. So I didn't have to worry about telling you to try to find images at home to try to copy mine. It's all pre-cut dies. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is assemble our background, or I should say assemble our foreground. The background is just a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and we're going to start. Actually, I put mine too far away. I need to refer. Hold on. Okay. So I'm going to start showing you what you need. So you should have a little baggie that has this foil heart here, and then a bunch of little hearts that are actually the centers of that. You should have a floral heart, and this is in our new Love You Always foil sheets, and this was the Sahara Sand foil. It's actually really pretty. It looks silvery on camera, but it's has like a taupey color, if that makes sense. So you will have a little stitched heart here, and this is actually the center of this heart. And then we have this really pretty blushing bride. I don't even know what it would be called, some sort of an ornate heart shape, and that's going to go on top of that one. We need, then you'll have another stitched heart, a large one, a pink heart that actually is from the inside of this one, a small heart, and then your words. So you'll have the shadow background of both words, the always and the love, and then you'll have the foil that goes on top. Now for the love, the L is actually a separate letter, so just be sure when you adhere it, you would have to adhere those together separately. All right, you should have some of our ribbon, and this is also part of the suite. It's the Blushing Bride ribbon, and it is a metallic. So if you can see on this side, it's got some, looks like gold specks, and if you want to use the reverse side, it still has a shimmer to it, but it is a little bit flatter, if that makes sense. Okay, and then to put together the paper part of it, my measurements were, let's see, so using the Blushing Bride paper, you're going to have a piece that measures 3 inches wide by 6 1/4. Then we're going to cut out 3 3x3 squares, so you'd have 3 of those. 1, 2, and then 3. And then a bigger one, which is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. Then we layered that with Rococo Rose, and I kept my measurements about 1/4 of an inch all around, just to keep it easy for you to recreate on your own if you wanted to make this using different products. So like I said, this one is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4, 6 by 6, and then the Designer Series paper is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. For this one, it was 3 6 1/4, and then we have our layer of the Rococo Rose, which is 2 3/4 by 6. This is the Specialty Designer Series paper, and this one is 2 1/2 by 5 3/4. And so I'm going to start with this one, but I'm still going to give you the measurements over here. So like I said, we had 3 by 3 Blushing Bride squares. And then we have one piece of Designer Series paper that was 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And these other two have the layers of the Rococo Rose. So you have 2 of these at 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then the Designer Series paper, 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. So you can see mostly just cutting going on here, and it's all done for you just to assemble. All right, so we're going to start with the love, the heart with the love, which is this one right here. And as I mentioned, the colors in my original sampler, I used a few products that weren't available anymore. So because I made a bunch of these, I wanted to make sure I offered you guys all the same stuff. So I chose liquid glue to put this together. You can certainly use whatever adhesive that is your preference. And then I also used some dimensionals. Now, I'm not a huge fan of liquid glue because I tend to make a huge mess of myself. I'm going to do my best to not do that. So I'm going to add my adhesive to the back of this one, adhere this onto the Blushing Bride. And hi, Teresa. All right. And then I'm going to add the adhesive to the back of the Designer Series paper. And I mean, the good thing about the liquid glue is you do have a little bit of wiggle room, so if you get something on crooked, you can move it just a little bit. All right, so for this one, we need this large stitched heart. This one is done in Blushing Bride. And then we're going to need the word love. Do I need to zoom in, okay, or is this okay as far as distance? I think I can zoom in just a smidge. All right. So to put the adhesive on the back of the love, I'm going to use my silicone mat. And I'm going to use my fine tip glue pen just for the little details. And of course, we're not going to work because this is not the right one. Hang on. Okay. Here we go. So you don't need a lot, but enough that it keeps the letters flat. Because this is a shadow box frame, there's not a lot of touching directly to it, except when you're swapping them out. Alright, so normally I'd use tweezers, but I failed to bring them. And I know I'm being quiet because I'm concentrating. There we go. And the fine tip pen glue pen that we have actually sets rather quickly if you don't move it around. So I'm just going to set that over. And while I have that out, I'm going to glue the always onto the background just to get it out of the way. Now with the glue pen, you can drag it along. I like to do like little dots, if that makes sense. I just kind of dot it down. I don't really squeeze too much out. I don't like having a lot of excess. But the fine tip on this makes it so easy for these little dies. And we actually do have adhesive sheets now that you could use. And so basically when you're cutting it out in the die machine, you would put the adhesive sheet, the paper on top of that, and then the die. And when you cut it out, it makes it like a sticker. I have yet to try them, although I do have them. I buy sometimes things and then I don't like to use them. I'm like a hoarder. And I apologize, somebody's phone in the room here, I didn't know was in my room, is ringing. Oh my goodness, why am I struggling? And again, you have a smidge of wiggle space with this one. The Liquid Tombow lets you move around just a little bit more. And I'm probably spending more time on this than I need to, but okay. So the other heart that you're going to use the liquid glue on is this kind of ornate foil one, and that is going to sit on top of this foil heart that actually was the center of this one. And it doesn't fit completely like perfectly, but you'll see when you go to put it together, it's enough that it just looked like it was meant to be that way. And I thought it was perfect when I was assembling this stuff to kind of use all this stuff and not waste. Alright, so I'm just going to dab in here. And then these will be drying as we continue to assemble everything else. And it's one less thing to glue. And just because it's foil, I'm going to hold it just a minute. Set it aside. And then I'm done with this one for right now. And if you have the Stampin' Up! Fine tip, make sure you close it in between uses so it doesn't dry up. That little fine tip point, oh, when that clogs, it's a nightmare. All right, so now we're going to add some dimensionals to the back of our heart here. And before I assemble that, I'm going to take the ribbon. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put the heart on first. I don't want to fuss. So now I'm going to center the heart. All right. I'm going to add a couple dimensionals to the back of the word love. And that's going to go right here in the middle. And then I'm going to take the ribbon and wrap it around. Oops, why are we upside down? And for this one, I tied it just in a knot. You can tie it in a bow, whatever you prefer. Just like this. All right. And then just trim your edges. And you can add some matte, what are they called? Matte black dots. And I did kind of a little grouping up towards the top. Like that. I added one to the heart, and then I did another smaller one down here a little bit towards the bottom, like that. So pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to set that one aside, move on to the next, which is this one, and I'm just going to glue this on. And then this foil heart is going to go up on dimensionals. Right in the center. And then I took 3 of the matte black pearls and just kind of lined them up here on the edge, like that. Oh, I'm a little. And this is when you would use your, take your pick tool to place these on in the right spot. Okay, so that one's all done. Set that aside. Moving on to the next one is this layer here. So again, we're just gluing our layers on. Just like this. All right, and then you need the larger Rococo heart, the Blushing Bride one, and then from this little baggie that I gave you, the die cut heart. Ooh. I'm going to dump these out. You can use whatever size you want. I think in my original I used a smaller heart. I'm going to use a slightly bigger heart here. And then these two go up on dimensionals. How we doing? Everyone following? Am I going too slow? Do you want me to speed up? I don't want to rush, but sometimes I feel like I take forever. Alright, so then this one, I think I kind of went towards the top. And this one is kind of right there off to the side, like that. Alright, that one's all set. And now I'm going to work on the bottom corner, which again are these layers. All right, and so for this one, we are taking this die cut one. And I should say what dies I cut these out of, just so you know. So this is the Always Dies, and this is part of the Love You Always suite. So the wording that I used came from this die set. And it has the coordinating stamp set that you can get as a bundle if you don't want to do the whole suite. And then the stitched Be Mine, which is a die set that looks like this. And so the large heart that I used for the word love is this one. And then I cut out a couple, I think it was one of them is these two, which is the square that we just did. And then we have another heart that basically is this one, and it ends up cutting out this particular one. So you get like the outline and then the heart comes out of it. And it also has these with it. So that's like that ornate one that I mentioned. And then this is that border one that we're working on right now. I actually forgot that I had this set. I had it marked as being a retired because in the catalog it says stitched Be Mine, and mine, because it's an older one, says Be Mine, so I didn't check it off as being current. So I went crazy looking for it. Luckily I didn't sell it, realizing it was still current. But it's one that I used a lot. I just forgot about it. All right, so for this one we're going to have it hang off the sides a little bit, so I'm not going to put adhesive from edge to edge. I'm going to focus more on these center pieces. Sometimes I like when it looks like pieces are hanging, because then they seem like they have some movement to them, and as long as they're not peeling off, I don't mind that they're not 100% stuck down. And see. So I'm going to deal with kind of being in the center and stick that down. And if you have regular size dimensionals, you're going to want to cut them a little bit smaller into little bits. Oop. Don't punch your screen when you're doing stuff. Or use some mini dimensionals for this part. So this is all the little bits that gets cut out when you run this through the die. And I decided to kind of put some of them back in these spots. So what I did was kind of chose, and I stuck the dimensional where I'm going to stick one. And then I just matched up a heart to the space. And I just thought it added just an extra touch to this. And then I'm not holding on to a bunch of hearts that were cut out going, okay, what am I going to do with these? And you can do as few or as many as you want. So I think that's probably good. And even if they're not the ones that go exactly into that spot, I don't mind. I think it still looked cute. I think I'll do one here. Oop, put this in the right spot. Sorry about that. Get this in the right position here. All right, that looks good to me. And it's a little different from my original, but that's fine, right? All right, so now I'm gonna stick some glue over here. And I'm gonna do one there. And I'm going to stick a couple little hearts down. Like that. Cute. And see, now the background kind of stands out much more than if we just stuck the die down or the die cut down. All right, set that one aside, and now we're going to work on the big one. And there is some hearts left over, so you can certainly add them throughout the project if you don't want to kind of waste or save them for a card that you might be working on. All right, and so for the bigger square, we used these layers, and then you will need this heart. And then these two hearts, you're going to need your ribbon and the word always. And then this was cut, the foil heart was cut from another new one called Floral Heart. And this is part of this suite, which looks like this. And this one's really neat because it cuts out like a banner, but it scores this section so you can kind of pop it up a little bit. But this is the die that I used to cut out that big heart. Okay, so let's put our layers together. Then the paper. And you can see this comes together rather quickly. Obviously I'm taking my time and I'm going a little bit slower because I'm explaining my steps to you. Just like that. And then what we're going to do on this one is we're also going to wrap the ribbon around, and I'm doing that first. So you need a good chunk of ribbon here. Let's see. I hate wasting ribbon, but I like to have enough to tie an adequate bow. So I'm going to tie this one is going to get a bow, whereas the love heart, I just did a big knot. Okay. And there we go. All right, so now we're going to take the foil heart and we're going to stick that one down. Again, use your liquid glue. And like the other ones, I don't do a bunch all the way around. I kind of focus more towards the center because I want that movement in the foil, but enough so that it doesn't peel up too quickly over time. All right, and so that is going to go right down here in the center. And because I'm going over ribbon, I'm just going to press on it for a minute. Make sure it's down. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this heart since it's a smaller piece. Use my fine tip. And that one I kind of stuck over here off to the side. And then that's all I need for my fine tip glue. Okay. So before I do any others, I'm going to stick my always down. And so on this one I did use dimensionals. And I'm using the edges just to use them up. Why not? They stick the same way. And that's probably good. I'm adding probably a little bit more of dimensionals than I normally would, and that's because part of this is going over ribbon, and sometimes they don't stick 100%. Alright, so now I'm going to take all this off, and this one is pretty much done with the exception of a couple embellishments. But this goes right across the center here. Okay, and then I'm going to take this heart, add some dimensionals to the back of this one. And that kind of gets tucked right, oops, right under here. And then the always kind of sits on it. I'm actually gonna glue, I know my fingers are sticky. I'm gonna glue this tail part of the Y down if it pops up on you. All right, so we have this, and now I'm going to take a couple of the little hearts and place them around the background. So what I like to do is just add the glue directly to the paper. I think it's time to replace this one. Where I think I'm going to stick a heart, you can do as few or as many, you know, as you like, because we do have a bunch left. and just stick them wherever you prefer. And this paper is so pretty in person. It's hard really to showcase it on my camera. I always say it's my lighting, and it is. It just is what it is, because it's never going to change. I've tried a different spot in the basement, but now I feel it's darker on this side. So, I don't know. I'll keep playing around at some point. And this is why I'm not a fan of liquid glue, because I make a mess of myself. And I'm going to do one more right here. And that is that. So if you can see, it's not silver, it's like a champagne color. You can also add some of the black pearls if you have enough of those to spread out. And I'm just going to clean up this space, because the next step that we have is actually putting it together onto the background. Okay, so let me get my paper, and that goes right here. Now, I won't be able to get the whole 12 by 12 in. Maybe I can. Okay, there we go. All right. So my suggestion would be lay it out the way that you want, and get it in a position where you feel that it's spaced out evenly before gluing down. You can use your ruler and measure your edges, or you can just eyeball it. And then, you know, once you put it down, it should be nice and even. So I think this comes down just a little bit. Alright, I think if I fuss around with it anymore, it's not going to get any better. I'm going to make it worse. I think that's good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one. And for this one I am using liquid glue. You could use your tape runner or your Stamp and Seal. But I find the liquid glue is the least, I should say the most forgiving, because you can move around. And then I'm going to do this one here. And I'm going to do my big square. Right here. And then add these. And then it's done. You just let it dry a little bit before sticking it in your frame, and you are good to go. What do you think? Do you love it? I think it's just so pretty. And I'm so excited to be making, I always wanted to do the seasonal ones, which we did last couple years. And then I always said I'm going to add on for different holidays and events. And I love that I'm finally getting to it. All right. So here you go. Here's the sampler. All right, you guys, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions or want to order the sampler because you haven't, feel free to message me and I will get one to you. I'm glad you love it, Teresa. Enjoy. Have a great night. Bye.